Hi everyone, Paul Maven back with another Linocut video. Quite a short one this time. We're just going to be looking at the production of some greetings cards. Been making the cards for about a year now. Just another way of getting a lino print out there. Usually make sets based on a theme. I've got an aquatic theme, a memorabilia theme, and at the moment I'm just starting to work on a new set of robots. Not sure why, just like the look of them. I think they'll work quite well on a card. So we're going to be looking at getting this onto some lino, using the same method as previous, carbon paper traced down. A little different with the cards. I usually put them on a back end to make them a bit more permanent, so it's a little bit plywood, and they've been dyed, they've been stained using acrylic paint. I've glued them down with some carpet adhesive and then just stained them with a little watered down acrylic paint, wiped off the excess. It just means it's easier to see what you're carving, so that's a nice little tip there. And we're just going to start cutting these down, ready for tracing onto the block. 'Cause she knows that it's demanding to defeat those evil machines. I know she can beat them. Oh, you're scheming. They don't believe me, but you won't let those robots eat me. You're scheming. They don't believe me. So here's the finished block. Lots of detail in there. A little bit more complicated to carve than I was anticipating, but quite pleased with it. Really worthwhile getting it really clean with some alcohol before you start printing. A good brush down and a good clean with alcohol. Just a quick word on the materials I use. I use a company called EcoCraft. They supply all recycled or recyclable materials, so the cards, the envelopes, any packaging, even the cellophane bags I use are all recyclable. I've had this thing made. It's basically 2 sheets of acrylic. It's hard, and aperture laser cut into it, the size of the board I use for the greetings cards. It just means I can get things in there very quickly. It's basically 2 sheets glued together. I don't have to mark anything off because the aperture is the right size. Everything just drops on there. The card sits on the top. I can then just use a bit of masking tape to get the card on. Don't have to mark it off, and away we go. Very quick, very easy. So I just want to show you this stuff. This is newsprint, mega cheap online for lots of it. Just really thin, cheap paper. So I always have a stack of this stuff lying around. It's going to sit on top of the card once I'm ready to go through the press. Just keeps everything nice and clean, off any stray ink off the rollers. And then I've got a couple of felts that were supplied by Creative Printers of London. They sit on top of there as well. Gives a nice little bit pattern for your print. Again, protection for the rollers. I highly recommend you get a couple of felts. So before we start printing, we're going to adjust the height of the rollers. This gap here needs to be obviously the right size. You don't want it too low. You just want to get a nice pressure down through the rollers onto your print. So I've got everything set up. I've got a card on there, got some newsprint and a couple of felts, and I'm just going to feed it through and see what the tensions feels like. I'm going to stop when I get to the line, or I can just feel it there now, and I'm going to adjust up or down using these knobs here. Really easy to do it both at the same time, so you've got a nice flat level roller. Get it just right, and then there you go. I feel that's at the right height now. So we're just mixing some inks up. We're going to go for a nice pink robot, I think. I'm using a Schmink water-based ink. Please don't try and mix this with an oil-based ink, it won't work. Just stick to one or the other.
Once I've got that mixed up on the palette, I'm going to start rolling out with a roller. You need to get this nice and even across the palette. What I'm looking for and what I'm listening for, that little crackly noise. Once I've got rid of all those lines across the surface and I've got a nice even spread, it sounds sticky. That's what I'm listening for. It's quite even, there's no gaps across there now, so it's that noise, sort of a sticky noise. There you go, that's lovely. There's a little bit of extender in here as well, which slows the drying process down, but even though it's water based, you've still got a little bit of shelf life on this before it starts to dry up, but we are pretty much ready to print now. So there you go, first card through. Just putting the finishing touches with my homemade stamp, and there it goes. Lovely. So there you go, that's the first card through, all done.
She's a black belt in karate, working for the city. She has to discipline her body.